Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, January 18th meeting of the Carson City Airport Authority. We're going to need a roll call and a determination of a quorum, please.
Chairperson Golden,
Here.
Vice Chair Pulitz,
Present.
Treasurer Rogers,
Here.
Member Horton,
Here.
Member Hamilton,
Here.
Member Hutter, Member Norvell.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Okay, before we get to the Pledge of Allegiance, we have a matter of business not on the agenda that must be addressed. We need to have Curtis sworn in as a member of the Airport Authority. So, could we take care of that, please?
So what I'm going to have you do is just repeat after me and then raise your right hand. I, Curtis Horton, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the Constitution and government of the state of Nevada against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign, and that I will bear true faith, allegiance, and loyalty to the same, any ordinance, resolution, or law of any state notwithstanding, and I will well and faithfully perform all the duties of the office of the Carson City Airport Authority, on which I am about to enter, so help me God, under the pains and penalties of perjury. All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure we do it right. And Curtis, welcome aboard. Could you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the minutes of the past Airport Authority meeting. Any comments whatsoever on those minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes as submitted.
I move to approve the minutes as submitted. Tim Pulis.
I second, John Rogers.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of past meetings of the Airport Authority. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Curtis, I suggest you abstain on this one since you were not present at that time. Okay.
Hey, your
Any
mic's-
abstentions?
Your mic's off anyway, so you're okay.
Okay. Motion carries. I'd like everyone to pay close attention to what I'm about to say regarding a modification of the agenda. We have a couple of special circumstances this evening that we need to attend to. Number one, Member Norvell is on a tight time frame this evening, so I would appreciate it if we could keep our discussions, relatively efficient, not necessarily to a minimum, but do what we need to do in a manner that can get Member Norvell out of here in a timely manner. We have 3 agenda items, and that's about it. On that note, because of the time constraint that he is faced with this evening, I am going to do one thing in modifying the agenda. We're going to push the airport engineer's report towards the end of the meeting after the agenda action items. I apologize to Nadine for doing that, but we're doing that this time around due to the time constraint. Also, in the public hearing section, there will be an agenda item where Vice Chair Pulitz will be taking over the meeting due to a conflict of interest on my behalf, and I'll be recusing myself. So that covers the nuts and bolts of this evening's meeting. Public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to address the Airport Authority may speak to an agendized or non-agendized matter related to the airport. Those comments are limited to 3 minutes per person or topic If your item requires any extended discussion, please request that I calendar it for a future airport authority meeting. If there are any members of the public here this evening that wish to address us on an agendized or non-agendized matter, now would be an appropriate time. If it's for an agendized matter, you'll have an opportunity to address us at that time also. Seeing no
Good
public
afternoon, gentlemen.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said good afternoon, members of the Airport Authority. My name is Tom Gonzalez, and I would like to address, if it's on calendar, I would like to address the issue of the Jet Ranch issue. If not, I would be happy to extend it to another meeting.
Tom, Michael here. Good evening and happy to talk to you again. You are on the agenda for this evening, so if you could be patient and wait, it would be more timely and appropriate to have you, opine at that time.
Thank you very much. I'd be happy to do so.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Okay, so we have no consent agenda this evening. We're going to move right into our public hearings. The first one is for discussion and possible action of bids received in response to the resolution and notice of invitation to bid and award lease for the parcel located at 2025 Arrowhead Drive. This is the shade tree hangar and parcel. Corey, I'm going to turn this over to you. If you would like to let us know where we stand,
Okay.
that would be
so-
fantastic.
Thank you. This is Corey. So this item, this was initiated at the board meeting in November, where we published a resolution for bid for either the purchase of the hangar that was formerly known as the Shade Tree Hangar with a ground lease or a lease for the entire property, including the improvements. We did receive, of course, that was published according to NRS 244-283, and we received 2 statements who expressed interest in an oral bid in compliance with NRS 244-283, and I believe they're both here today to present their bids. I did receive one of them had some information in their notice. The other was just a notice of oral bid. I have them here. I can hand those out to the board members for y'all to see them. But the meat of their bids will be presented orally today. I think that's about all I've got to say about it. Takis, would you like to add anything?
Okay, quick question here. Did we not have, correct me if I'm wrong, Corey and Steve, did we not have a minimum bid amount through an appraisal?
Yes.
We did.
Yes, and the law requires that we cannot lease it for below its appraised value.
Okay. For our benefit and everybody's memory, could you tell us what that value is?
Yes. It should be in the.
It's on the resolution, which was part of your
Yeah.
packet.
No, I got it.
And it's, lease the parcel with the existing hangar for a minimum rental of $6,600 per month. Or, they can purchase the hangar for 1.3 million and lease the property for $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Those are the minimums.
So we have a written proposal here from one party. We have another party that said they'd like to participate in oral bidding. How are we going to manage that?
Okay, so I haven't seen the written proposal, and I haven't seen the letter, so I'll take a look at those shortly. But the statute allows people to orally bid. If you submit a written offer, you're entitled to orally bid. If you notify us 5 days in advance, you're entitled to orally bid. Here are, they would need to describe to you their proposal consistent with the resolution.
Okay.
And then,
I think for the benefit then of the party that submitted the written proposal,
yeah,
which is in accordance with NRS based on what I'm looking at it and the date of that proposal, we need to listen to the oral proposal before we discuss the written proposal.
okay, I mean, the oral
Yeah.
the oral proposal would need to describe what they're proposing so you can determine whether or not it's consistent
You
with
see my point.
the
then.
resolution. Yeah, you don't have anything to compare it to.
Right. And when we don't want to put the written proposal at a disadvantage over an oral proposal.
Well, the way the bidding works is the person who bids against the, whatever you consider as a compliant bid or the highest bid, if there were a whole bunch of bids, has to bid at least, let me get the statute. I think they have to bid at least, there's a percentage more, 5% more or something like that. And so you have to start someplace. And so
Right.
just glancing at these, the written proposal actually it looks like it complies with the terms of the lease.
Yeah, it complies with
with it.
Yeah. So let's hear the oral proposal first. Mr. Lewis? You can't do that, sir. That puts the written proposal at a severe disadvantage because you didn't put one in writing. You need to tell us what your oral proposal is.
I'm just gonna, I want to pull up the statute real quick.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's see what the Nevada revised statute is. I'm sure you understand my concern, both of you. I'm sure you understand the concern that I have here.
Well, before accepting a written proposal, the board shall call for oral bids. If upon the call for oral bidding, any responsible person offers to lease the property upon the terms and conditions specified in the resolution for a rental exceeding at least 5% the highest written proposal, then the highest oral bid, which is made by a responsible person and meets the terms of the resolution, may be accepted.
Okay.
And then it provides for, if somebody bids over 5%, then you have to give the first party the opportunity to bid
Right.
over that one.
So I am, based on the NRS, which I did review before our meeting this evening, I am now calling for oral bids to be presented.
Well, I think you have to notify the oral bidder
Yeah.
what the bidding terms are, and I think,
Well, I think we outlined that in our request for proposals.
correct, we did, but somebody could have bid more. They could have come in and started at more, in which case the
So
oral
how
bidder.
would you like to handle it then?
I think what you do is you read the terms of the offer that you have in front of you,
That's fine.
and you start with that, which is pretty straightforward.
Okay. So we have received a written proposal from one of our existing tenants to lease the entire property for a term of 50 years. At $6,600 per month. I'm seeing in here that the proposer has requested an option to terminate at such times as the airport guidelines, rules, or costs change every 2 years. Again, $6,600 per month with 2% CPI adjustments every other year. The lease will include aircraft access to aircraft movement areas, is what's being proposed. And the tenant's going to comply with all airport rules, including those set forth in Carson City Municipal Code Title 19. Stu's Aircraft Services is currently operating the Carson City Airport, providing aircraft maintenance services. Stu's Aero intended use of the proposed lease is to expand its maintenance services and for no other use. Additionally, Stu's Aero offered to divide the land lease and release the land not used by the hangar currently on the property to CXP and to provide surveys and additional details of such a division of the current lease at their expense. This is an offer to lease the premises on the terms and conditions contained herein. Okay, so again, $6,600 per month is the proposal. There is a caveat that there is a right to terminate at such times as the airport guidelines, rules, or costs change. That's kind of odd, or I'm going to probably request clarification on that from the applicant. Could you address that? Because that's not in accordance with what we would normally do. Please, introduce yourself.
I assume I push a little button.
Got it.
Okay.
Oops.
If you could push the button and introduce yourself.
And push
Is it green? Get it green. Get it green. There you go, man.
Okay, there we go. Brian Stewart, I'm the owner of High Sierra Pilots and Stu's Aero Services. We've been operating for a few years now at Carson Tahoe Airport. What I'm trying to say with that basically is that if the airport suddenly changes rules where we can't operate in accordance with the assumptions of doing a maintenance business in that hangar, or there's some unexpected price jump, since we don't have control of that, when the terms as we set forth in the written lease are to change unexpectedly, that we would have the option to terminate. I do have some standard language that we can provide for that, but for the purpose of this letter, we just wanted to get this to you so that we had the opportunity to present and clarify.
Any questions or comments from Airport Authority members on this proposal? Yes, sir.
One more point there, the ground lease is much bigger than the ground lease for the hangar with the access to the access area and movement area. So when we're talking about dividing that, there's enough room on that land lease to build an equally sized and usable hangar. So in discussion with the airport and in the interest of the airport, we at our own expense would do the surveys to divide that lease and release it to Carson City Airport to use however they see fit to execute another land lease to let somebody else develop it. It just doesn't make sense to leave it there for the sagebrush to occupy.
Okay, I don't know that we would entertain that, but for now, you'd have to take it as is, where is.
Which I'm fine to take it as it is too.
Okay.
Nonetheless, I just discuss things with the
Understood.
airport that they might be interested in.
Yep. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Brian?
just that as you guys consider this, it's my belief that general aviation maintenance for small piston aircraft is an important service to the health of this airport. We're a known entity. We're a known tenant. We've been here for a while, and I don't think it's terribly risky to bet on us, and we'd like to throw that out there for you guys' consideration. The other thing is the expansion. When I say general aviation maintenance, we've got an avionics shop. We'd like to basically move our operation in Minden to Carson to include avionics services along with the engine and the power plant and airframe services we offer, which is right now an absent service at Carson. And we think that's a good thing for the airport, and we'd just like to make the members of the board aware of our intent.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from Airport Authority members? Yes, sir. Member Norvell.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question about item number 2 in the offering regarding the termination clause that the applicant proposes. So I'm not exactly certain what that means. If we give you the option every 2 years to terminate the lease if there's something going on in the airport or, that you don't care for, then you have the option to terminate.
It's not necessarily at the airport. Essentially, the language that I'm looking for is to say that if the airport changes the rules to make it so I cannot run a maintenance business out of that spot, that I have the option to exit. The reason it's in parentheticals to say 2 years is because we included unexpected cost changes. So in parentheses, the CPI is every 2 years. So we put that in there just to make it a little bit clear.
Yes, I would just ask council, have we seen anything like that in the past with any of our leases?
We have had some leases that have had escape clauses. I haven't seen one quite like this, but I'm not sure that this is that big a deal because as Mr. Stewart explained it, it sounds like the lease actually guarantees a certain rate. And the lease also guarantees his ability to run his maintenance operations. If we did something that didn't allow him to do that, I think he'd have the right to get out anyway because we're not honoring our part of the lease. So
Certainly. I mean, how would the termination clause typically read?
I'd have to look at some language, but just
I-
listening to what he's proposing, it doesn't sound that onerous to me.
Yeah, Harlow, let me put it in simple terms so that everybody understands it, because you bring up a good point. I was equally concerned when I read that. Mr. Stewart's putting this in the negative, is what he's doing in his proposal, okay? He's going to be guaranteed the right to operate in writing in his lease. Nothing can change that. Once he has a lease is a contract for all intents and purposes. It just is what it is. As for CPI increases, that's standard operating procedure in all of these leases. We can't make any exceptions to that.
Not looking for any.
Okay.
I
So
guess-
he's just stating it in the negative that we stated in the positive in the lease. We'll have a use clause that outlines a use that is approved for this lease.
I would think the language in the standard termination clause would cover what he's saying. If we did something.
We're not going to put in a standard termination clause. It's handled in a different way, Harlow.
If we did something that made it impossible for him to operate,
Then he could terminate.
certainly he would have
Yeah.
the right
Yeah.
to terminate, but
Yeah, and I'm just looking for that to be included in the language of the lease. My team went through it and did not find any language that prohibited.
yeah, I mean, if we overtly did that, he might even be.
And 50 years is a long time,
Look,
boys. Some things, leadership changes, people pull the rug out. I've seen it happen. I've had it happen. I just like I'm putting in there, I want some language
I
that
think
guarantees
this is
that.
something that's easily addressed. Again, it's being stated in your proposal in what I call the negative. There's a way to state it in the positive. I'm not too concerned. Okay? Yes, John.
And the only area where I think we need to be careful is you're going to be operating a Class 1 FBO out of that facility, and our FBO fees might change from time to time. And so I don't want it to be, hey, if we raise the FBO fee by 10%, that's an excuse to leave.
That FBO
The
fee
only
is not
FBO
applicable.
fees that we have that are separate FBO fees are the Class 2 FBOs. The people who rent from space from somebody who has a lease. So the person who leases this property, they don't have to pay that FBO fee on the top. Theirs is included in their rent. But, I mean, there could be other things that change, and I don't think this is an unreasonable request, and I think it could be easily added in. Because it's really is, as the chairman says, it's really kind of just the other side of the same coin, where we're assuring him the right to do these things anyway. And we're also giving him assurances on the fees that he pays that they won't be more than a certain amount.
Okay, I'm comfortable with council's, if council feels that the verbiage can be addressed, I'm comfortable. But is this an as-is lease, Corey, or are there some things the airport still has to do to the facility before it's been leased out?
We don't have a final lease. We only have a sample lease right now.
I'm just saying, as far as you're concerned, as far as we're concerned, is the lease supposed to be as is, or does the airport still have some expenses associated with the property before it's turned over for lease?
Well, we do suspect that there will be expenses incurred to get that property up to current code requirements.
Okay, so basically, what I'm asking Brian is to Corey is that we'll lease it to you in code compliance. Because I know there's a few things that have to be demolished, a stairwell has to be improved or something. That is still planned to be done before as part of our obligation. That's what I want to verify.
I think technically right now that could still be negotiated.
Well, that's what.
I think, hold on a second. I know where you're going with this, and I think what we had said was that we would lease it as is, but code compliant. Is that correct? What did we?
I don't think that's what's in the
Okay,
resolution.
it was as is then.
The resolution says as is.
Okay. As is as is. So if there's code compliance, whoever takes over this building has to put.
So Brian, there's a few things. The
There's-
stairwell's got to have some rails on it. You got to pull the washer and dryer upstairs out. There's a half a dozen things. The most important thing we did confirm is that the city is not going to require retrofitting sprinklers or things of that nature. We confirmed that, so.
As long as the use of the hangar doesn't change.
Yeah.
Which, in his case, the use of
case,
the
it would
hangar would
not.
not change.
And our high-performing and incredible airport manager took the time to walk me through all those changes and set an expectation that would be my problem, not yours. And
Okay.
I went in eyes
That's
open.
that's what we need clarified. Thank you. Okay, so now, Mr. Lewis, you said you'd like to propose. Oh, yes, Paul. I'm sorry, Steve.
Just one thing, in between bidders, I was just texted here from my contact with Jet Ranch that Mr. Gonzalez is on the line and wants to also put in a verbal bid on the shade tree.
Okay, hold on a
So
second.
I'm relaying that message
I
in
understand
between.
that. However, that is not permissible.
Yeah, the statute doesn't allow that. The statute only allows oral bidders if they either have made a
They have
written
to provide a
bid
notice.
or they've provided notice at least 5 days prior to the hearing. And so, can't do that.
Yeah, I'm not
Just letting you
trying
know.
to get him into bed. I'm relaying a message.
I understand. That's not permitted. Okay, now,
Permitted because he would
statutory requirement.
written, okay.
Okay, so Mr. Lewis did comply. He
With-
put
with a
in
written
a
notice.
written notice proposal. On the 12th, today is the 18th, he followed the statute. Okay? Perfect. Anything else, Paul?
Nope.
Curtis? Okay, Steve, we'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Lewis, co-owner of Gonai Aviation and owner of Sterling Air Limited, Class 1 and Class 2 FBOs respectively. Just for clarification, I had heard at one time that the the shade tree hangar, after an inspection, may have yielded something close to $200,000 worth of deficiencies. am I right or wrong on that, Tim? I know that you and I had a conversation at one
That had
time.
to do if they were gonna make us retrofit the sprinklers, and then we had it clarified. We had an opinion from an architect, and we went to the city, they clarified, and that was the majority of the whole cost, Steve.
Okay, okay. So we're back down to a few things that are not going to equal $200,000.
I can also comment on that.
Uh, th-
So the work that needs to be done and the quote that we received was the absolute worst case scenario, most expensive possible situation. It was actually total even more than 200,000. If you're able to do that work yourself, you could get that thing code compliant for almost no cost or very little cost. A lot of that stuff can just be removed entirely to get rid of the code problems. So the varying rate depends on how you're going to go about it. If you're going to hire a professional to do it, if you're going to do it a lot of that yourself to eliminate the code problems, it could really vary very drastically. So I'd be happy to kind of answer any questions about that.
That's not necessary at this time. Thank you, Corey. Mr. Stewart called me this afternoon, and we had a very productive 30-minute conversation. So at this time, I am not going to bid against him. I fully support his future business model, and but I do reserve the right to orally bid if, in fact, another bid comes up tonight. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And my apologies to you personally if you were offended at how I was trying to manage this. I didn't want to put him at a disadvantage.
I'm always offended.
I'm just letting you know. I want to make sure we have a level playing field. I hope you understand that. Okay, so we do have a bid. I guess the action we would take is does the airport authority wish to go forward and proceed with a lease to be provided to Mr. Stewart and his operation? I will state 2 facts. One fact is that we said consideration would be given to an aircraft maintenance facility. We did say, as an airport authority board, that we wanted that use and that additional consideration would be given to it. Stu Zero meets that consideration threshold. So I do want to point that out. I will, on a personal note, state that High Sierra Pilots is a tenant of a company that I own. They've been an exemplary tenant. We've never had any issues with them. They've been nothing but courteous. They pay on time. They've been just a fantastic user and operator at the airport. So, and your timing couldn't be better because you're going to be severely disrupted in about 4 to 8 weeks in our building as we remodel. So, something for you to consider there.
Comment?
Go ahead.
When are you willing to make this effective, Brian?
I got really no hangups. I'm willing to work with the airport and come up with an appropriate time. I don't have any hard deadlines to make it effective or not. So.
I would assume we would do this, by the end of next month at the latest. Is there should we have a time frame on this?
Yeah, we could have a lease ready for the next board meeting for approval.
So if that's the case, March 1st minimum would be the,
Well, if we can have a lease prepared for your approval and signature at the next meeting, then we need to put it on the Board of Supervisors. And so, yeah, I think we want to build those time allowances in.
can we just put that verbiage into the deal that show the process, so it's in the deal, so
Yeah,
it's acknowledged by everybody? Okay, that'd be great.
I assume it goes without saying. I'm going to say it anyway, though. I will need time to review the languages in the actual lease, not just the sample lease.
We're going to let you work with our legal counsel, and you guys are going to have to tailor that lease to the extent that it can be revised.
Right.
You're going to have to tailor it to your needs and make sure that, you know, you're protected and you're satisfied with the document, again, within the confines of what we can do.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that the Carson City, the municipality, is the airport sponsor, and they have to approve the document also.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, one other thing I should just mention is the template for the lease is something that was worked on through several iterations between the airport authority and the district attorney's office. So we don't want to tinker too much with the structure of the lease, but certainly anything specific to your operations is fair game, and we want to make sure we get that right. So, yeah, we should be able to do it.
Don't make a mockery of the system.
There
Gotcha.
you go. You got it, man.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
being that this is an action item, is there going to be a opportunity for public comment for this item, or did I miss that opportunity?
Well, I mean, you could comment right now. I thought you guys were, the two of you were together on this.
We hang out. Do you mind if I?
I don't mind it. I don't mind at all. Happy to entertain your comment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name's Frank Monak. I'm the airport manager for the Minden-Tahoe Airport. I'm here to speak in favor of Mr. Stewart and the operation he'd like to bring to your airport. He has been a phenomenal tenant at Minden, and I'm actually saddened to hear that he wants to move some of the maintenance operations over here, but I understand why. We're out of room. And I think that his operation is phenomenal. I've seen his business grow, all three of them. And I would love to see Carson City benefit from what he has to bring. Because I'm a firm believer in the, especially Northern Nevada airports, we shouldn't compete, we should cooperate. And I would love to see Carson City flourish from what he has to bring. So thank you.
Frank, I'm really pleased that you introduced yourself. Didn't know who you were, and I'd love to speak with you briefly if we take a recess.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your comment. Appreciate it. Really do. Yeah. Anyone like to make a motion, Tim?
Tim Pulis, I move to accept the bid presented by Stu Zero with the terms for a lease and direct staff to proceed with the development of the lease.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who wants to fight over it? Paul or Harlow? Either one.
Paul.
Okay, Paul seconds. We have a motion and a second to accept the bid presented by Stu Zero with the terms set forth in the proposal we've been provided with this evening and direct staff to proceed with the development of the lease. May I add that we anticipate that this will have a lease start date of April 1st based on the calendar of events that we have moving forward.
Target, yeah.
Yeah, target. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Going to take a 3-minute break for just a moment. We'll reconvene here at 6:15 prompt. back in session, 6:15. We'll move on to agenda item number 2 here for discussion and possible action, review of qualifications received responsive to the RFQ to serve as legal counsel to the Carson City Airport Authority, which was posted on the airport webpage. We're going to provide staff with direction how to proceed. Let me give a brief background on this. We are required periodically to look at not necessarily competitive bids, but look at qualifications when it comes to our consultants, including our legal counsel. And we also were noticed by our counsel that his company's rates were going up effective January 1st. Quite candidly, the rates that were being charged are very equitable, but we took that opportunity to put out an RFQ to see what else was out there. So on that note, I know we've received, a response from our existing counsel. Corey, did we receive anything else?
We did not receive any other qualifications.
Okay. On that note, since we didn't, I would suggest that we continue with our current legal counsel going forward until further notice. Pretty simple. Steve, do we have a written agreement with your firm?
Yeah, there is an engagement letter in place.
Okay, and what is the time frame of that? What sort of term do we have there?
The engagement letter, it doesn't have a termination date. It's basically renews from year to year.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can certainly get you an updated one because the one that we have is pretty old.
Okay.
I do want to mention one other thing, though. I am sensitive to the fact that the airport authority has a restricted budget. You have limited funds and things. And so I am going to be working with the airport manager and other members of my firm to see if there's a way that we can start cycling in some of the younger attorneys who charge at a lower rate as a way to, and then I could basically give them direction as a way to try and keep the costs as low as possible. I'm also always looking for attorneys to hire that have an aviation background with the hopes that they could basically step into the shoes some point.
Okay, do we need to take any action on this? I don't believe so. Okay. Yes, John.
I want to just thank Council Takis for his sensitivity to, trying to bring somebody along behind him, because that's the only issue that remains unsatisfied, shall we say, by this effort is, some kind of succession planning. And so I really appreciate a succession planning thought and manifested, with our current council.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda action item number 3 for discussion and possible action. Consider the response from KCXP Investments regarding notice of breach and termination of lease on taxiway Charlie and corresponding action, review, modify and or approve the notice of termination for KCXP Investments. I am going to recuse myself of this matter due to a conflict of interest, and Vice Chair Pulitz will be running the discussion on this particular matter.
Thank you, Michael. Tom, are you still on the phone?
I am. Yes.
Great. What's going to happen, Tom, is I think there's going to be comments from both parties, from 2 parties, and I would like to first get a staff summary, and then we'll open it up to both of your discussions. So we'll start off with staff summary, please.
Okay, so this item is interesting. So this lease is originally from 2008. Over the history, of this lease. It was, as we all know, 2008 was a really difficult time for the economy across the entire country. They were allowed additional time in order to complete their original construction plans because of the state of the economy. Over time, there were correspondence back and forth. I wasn't around back then, but they were given more time accordingly. Today, there is a significant increase in demand for airport property for hangar development. I have at least 12 parties that would like to, well, 11 now, because one of them signed a lease recently, who would like to develop on the airport. There's clearly no longer an economic restriction to the development on that parcel. We notified them of that and that they needed to proceed with some sort of construction. I sent them first a letter about a year ago. That was December of 21. And letting them know that we needed to see some sort of development moving forward. They told us that they were working on something. We didn't have the details of it, but we gave them time to put something that together. So we gave them about a year to try to put something together there. We never saw anything. So at the last board meeting, November 16th, 2022, the authority voted to issue a notice of default to KCXP Investments LLC per the breach provisions of the lease. The notice of default was sent on November 17th, 2022, and KCXP Investments LLC was given a deadline of January 18th, 2023 to respond. They have responded. It sounds like with their response, which I do have a copy of that, that I can hand out to all of y'all once I've done this briefing. It looks like they have a plan in place to go ahead and proceed with development. I think that's definitely the best case for all parties, if we can find a way to allow them to do that. But at the same time, I think that we have to put protective measures in place for the airport because of the age of this lease. We have to demonstrate to the airport users and the general public that we are going to stick to our lease agreements and we're going to stick to our requirements and the things that we have to hold ourselves to. I do have some ideas that I'm willing to discuss, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and hand out the notice that I received from Tom Gonzalez and his representative, Robert Reed, and we can discuss all of the options available.
Okay, thanks, Corey. Why don't you continue with your comments? Tom, since you're not here, we're all reading the letter that was authored by Robert Reed and dated January 17th about plans to develop the parcel. So we're all reading that one paragraph letter, and now Corey's got more comments.
So in their letter, they state that they can get engineering plans and hangars built in a quicker time frame that we would normally allow for in our ground lease, which is great. But I do think that's very hopeful. With what I've seen with development, I could expect some delays there. I think that if the board is going to consider giving them more time, that they should consider granting the same amount of time that we would allow for a ground lease, which is 12 months to generate engineering plans and to get permits, and then an additional 12 months to complete construction. If the board decides to do that in response to the letter that we've received from them, I do think that we should require some additional requirements from them. For example, I think this is open for discussion by the board, but I just have some ideas here. If we required them to prepay for that 2-year period, with a requirement for them to demonstrate forward progress with their development, such as a report quarterly or every 3 months or something along those lines, we could potentially set it up so that they would pay for that, and then they would be at risk of default if they fail to make forward progress, and that would be non-refundable. What that would do is it would protect the airport and also provide incentive for them to actually complete this development. And I think that something along those lines would be in the best interests of all parties. Defaulting on the lease would be a loss of income for the airport, but we do have to take action and take responsibility for our side of these agreements, because we do have a duty to the other airport users and the general public. So I think that's all the comments that I have about this item. Does anyone have any questions for me about anything that I've stated?
Maybe it's time to hear from Mr. Gonzalez, and then we'll open up to our other interested party. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. First of all, that piece of property, and I think Mr. Lewis will verify that it was always initially determined that we would put a fuel farm in there. Time constraints, more people having accessibility to fuel at the airport, I think kind of we shove it to the back burner. On my side, I must tell you that I put this project, well, let me start again. In the past, I also did something that the airport didn't like, and I can understand it. I put a $5 million loan on Jet Ranch, but I walked and put my tail between my legs, and I immediately paid that loan off, as I said I would do before a board such as we have here tonight. I always do my best to keep my word. In this particular case, I put over $100,000 already on that piece of property, and I'm willing to put another. As Corey just said, I'd be happy to put whatever amount of good faith deposit, several months lease, whatever the airport sees fit. I'd be happy to do that. I had a problem with this property going into one of my trusts, which will be abolished in the next 60 days. I have had a horrible time with I don't want to go out and expose all my laundry, as it were, but I promise you I've got it under control and rectified now. And I have really cut back on my workload. So I'm happy to build a very nice big hangar there. You see, Jet Ranch is always full, not the single hangars, but the main hangar is always full. So it occurs to me the best thing I can do for the Carson City Airport and for Jet Ranch is to build a bigger hangar so it can hold more airplanes, more transients, and more things that could be done, and take up as much space as I can on that piece of property. Jet Ranch, I think, is the crown jewel of the airport. I mean, it's better built than anything else there, and I would like to follow that same thing with even a bigger hangar. So I'm anxious, if the airport will allow me, I'm anxious to move forward with that program. And Corey, if you don't think I can do it in 9 months, okay, then I'm happy to take 3 more additional months, if you will, given the design build and get it through permitting. I'm not there, but I intend to spend more time in Carson City because I spent a lot of my life there. Anyway, I intend, if you will allow me, to build a big facility, as big as I can put reasonably on that piece of property. So that's my idea of what I think should happen.
Okay, thanks, Tom, for that comment. We have a representative here from CTE, and Tom, personally, I got a call from James Pickett today, and he said that you're also considering a proposal from them to transfer the lease on a deal that he wanted to make sure that we were aware that you also have as an option, and I thought I'd let their rep speak for a moment.
Good evening.
Well, if I may add, if I could address that, we have had talking points. We've never exchanged one dime. We've only talked about options, but it never came to fruition. So I can't, and I'm not going to separate anything from that lease unless the authority says, Tom, you're out, Scout, we're done with you. That's the only way that I want to like I said, it was just talking points. So there has been nothing in paper, nothing in writing, no letter of intent, no money, no nothing.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Go ahead.
Evening, board members. Bruce Carrod, Carson Tahoe Executive. Yes, Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Piggott, through the holidays and since the last board meeting, have been talking, as Mr. Gonzalez said. CTE has an interest in assuming the lease. We obviously support any development at the airport, and we're really anxious to start construction in there. And if Mr. Gonzalez and CTE can reach an agreement, that would be, I think, the goal of the airport. And I think the whole push to kind of press the issue and notify Mr. Gonzalez was to prime piece of property, would like to see it developed out. So again, we share the same goal. We hope that we can reach terms, and again, we're just kind of dating right now with Mr. Gonzalez and having some talking points. We did have a draft agreement, and I think just coming to terms would be the goal. Obviously, Mr. Gonzalez is on the line, and he can speak to this as well, but yeah, Carson Tahoe Executive, would appreciate the opportunity and like to have something built at the airport, as you know.
Thank you, Bruce. Any questions to either of them at this point by the members? No? I have some.
Sure.
Okay, so this is to Mr. Gonzalez. Tom, as you know, it's been about 13 years since you built that beautiful hangar complex and took on that extra 1.5 acre property. And the airport does acknowledge how it's been a fantastic addition to our airport community. But we also know that technically that 1.5 or 1.7 acres was supposed to be developed within a short period of time, and because of several issues, as you mentioned, the airport's been very lenient on enforcing that, and we need to act now, as you know. So what a discussion that I had with our airport manager, Corey Jenkins, was perhaps just to put things to be a little more solidified is to have you come up within 30 days a non-refundable, some type of deposit that the council is going to have to guide us on, that you'll forfeit if you don't follow through with either leasing the land back, subleasing it, or moving the lease over to CTE, or to start the development process as you have committed to do. It's just something that it's a win-win for everybody. You know, the money is just a deposit to confirm that you're going to do what you're doing, and if you don't, then we get to keep it. I don't know how to do the actual.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I was thinking, I don't know, Corey, did you have a number in mind from our discussion?
If we were to use their lease rate as a sample, which we don't have to, the airport board can come up with a different number. I like the idea of using in something to measure and being able to use the lease rate. The number comes out to, for a 24-month period, would be $16,134.24. And the board could just, I think the board is kind of free to decide how you want to go about this. It could be a prepayment of rent, or it could be a good faith deposit.
Well, if prepayment of rent is not a non-refundable thing, that's just a prepayment of rent. That is not a penalty.
You could make it a prepayment of rent, but it would be forfeited if he does not follow through and get us
Yeah,
business
I just want the
plans.
terminology to be correct.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be predatory here. I just want to make sure that it's understood that things have to happen. They have to happen in timely fashion. And in the event that, for some reason, if Mr. Gonzalez chooses not to proceed, the airport gets that deposit, and then we can go ahead and at that time lease the land to somebody else as the airport. We would terminate it. Does anybody feel differently about that? Mr. Rogers?
I'm happy to put up whatever. And I know that you're not thinking of being punitive when we're talking about this amount of money. And I'm happy to forward that amount of money and more if you want. I am going to develop that piece of property in conjunction with the airport authority. I hope that you would love my plans. And, you know, like I said, we always have, my big hangar is always full. It just is. And I've got people who would love to bring their bigger airplanes there. So why not build a bigger version of what I already have, and we can accommodate those types of airplanes.
Okay, then. Corey, could you possibly,
Excuse me, Mr.
oh, I'm sorry, John.
Vice Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
John.
I mean, I agree with the number that Corey proposed. I just wanted to ask council, is this something that we have done before? And can you think of any restrictions on the board for doing some kind of a non-refundable, deposit or prepay scenario?
I don't know that we've done it before. There have been some forfeitures in leases before, but I don't recall it being done like this, but I don't see there's any problem with doing it this way. There was one thing that I heard that I think could be a problem. You can't condition it on assigning the lease to somebody else. That can't be one of the conditions. You know, it needs to be based on the terms of the lease, which are you construct hangars. And I believe Mr. Gonzalez when he says that he will follow through with the project. He certainly has the financial wherewithal to do that. And I think what he's described is a need that you guys have talked about previously, which is the large aircraft, corporate aircraft need. And so I'm not seeing a problem. One of the things that, I don't know if Corey mentioned it in his briefing to you, but one of the other conditions would be that there would be a status report, so we know that things are moving forward. And the failure to give us a status report or to move forward in some meaningful way would be another reason to look at a forfeiture. We would want to fine tune that because again, we don't want it to be predatory. In a perfect world, we want to be partners and we want to help this happen.
Thanks, Mr. Stakus.
And do you think that this side, separate agreement or side agreement that we would have to get signed, it would have to be approved by the board of supervisors? Or do you think we can do that on our own?
I have to give some thought to that. I don't, ordinarily, any modification of the lease should go to the Board of Supervisors. Here, the modification is basically us holding off on an enforcement that we could take. And I'm not sure I'm not sure how you put that in front of the Board of Supervisors. Yeah, we're thinking we might not do this. What's the Board of Supervisors? You're putting them in an awkward situation. So I guess I'm kind of coming out to the position that I don't think what we're talking about now, I don't think would need to go to the Board of Supervisors. I think that when we change a lease or we initiate a new lease, those definitely need to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Takis. Oh, go ahead. Do you have something else, Bruce?
Yes, just a couple comments. So it would revert to the terms of the lease as we've worked as kind of our template of durations of when construction would start, correct? So we just revert.
Yeah, I think the proposal would be that Mr. Gonzalez would have 1 year to get his building plans approved and 1 more year to get the construction completed, which is our usual process for each of the leases.
And I may add to that, Mr. Takis, that part of this will be that before our next board meeting, we will have had to have this agreement, this proceeding agreement with, I would suggest a $25,000 deposit or a non-refundable deposit is what I'd recommend. And have it set up so that we vote that you've received this agreement in writing and there's been a deposit made that has appropriate language that we can accept at our next board meeting. And if it's not done by the next board meeting, then we have to go back to our termination of the lease. Is that how everybody understands this?
One more thing,
Okay.
important part would be progress updates.
That would be part of the verbiage, part of the verbiage that you come up with on
Mhm.
that signed agreement with the deposit.
Yeah, that would give airport staff and the airport authority the ability to take action sooner than 2 years from now. So
Correct.
we're not just granting a 2-year extension here.
Right.
They have to show that they're actually doing this.
So we all understand then, but by the next meeting, we're going to have an agreement presented to Mr. Gonzalez that's going to indicate that non-refundable deposit, if he does not proceed with the project, it's going to include a progress reports, mandatory progress reports, and all the other items outlined by our discussion tonight. And that should be available for us to see and approve by the next board meeting.
Yeah, I'd take it one step further a little
I
bit,
would add-
Chairman Pulis, and that is, what we want by next board meeting, we want a signed agreement by Mr. Gonzalez
And a check.
that we can, and a check that we can then approve.
Correct, that's what I said, yes, signed agreement that we can approve, yes.
Right, okay, perfect.
Is that good with you, Tom?
With one caveat, and that is through no fault of my own. And I'll use, for example, in 2019-20, we had the COVID thing where nothing got done. If it has nothing to do with my fault, if I'm giving you regular progress reports on everything, I've made that payment. I'm hired people. I got, I bring the whole committee to the airport manager. I'll do whatever is necessary to quantify that I'm getting that building built as fast as humanly possible. But if through no fault of my own, I think I deserve an extension if it's not my fault.
Is that something you can craft into that agreement, Mr. Tagus? Yeah, I think that's a fair request. Okay, we'll include that in the agreement, Tom. Okay,
Thank you very much. That's all, everything I had.
Just one more comment on my
Yeah.
side. So as Mr. Gonzalez wants to be partners with the airport, if CTE and Mr. Gonzalez are able to reach any terms, would we be able to present that? Or similar to this meeting, I think you gave 61 days. So if something came about or we had made an agreement to assume the lease, then you guys could vote to extend it, and that's why it was another day. Is that still an option if we can reach an agreement, or?
Yeah, I think anything's possible, and
Okay.
certainly I don't see any restriction against doing something like that. It's just that I don't think we can make that a condition of the deal because that's
Understood.
outside of the scope of the lease itself. But yeah, anything
yeah.
you guys want to
Right.
work out and bring back to the authority will consider. I don't think
Sure.
anybody
Yeah.
can guarantee you
Right.
something will be approved or not approved at this point. They have to see it and they have to vote on it.
yeah, from my discussion with James Pickett, what his input to me was that should you come up with an agreement before this 30-day the next airport meeting with Mr. Gonzalez, and you do come up with agreement to he assigns his lease to you at CTE, that we could accept that as a board, as a lease assignment.
My suggestion is, if you're making progress and those kinds of discussions, just let us know before we put out the agenda to the meeting, and that way we can put broad enough language so that we could do whatever it is you're proposing, whether that is an assignment of the lease and the same extensions and terms we talked about, something like that, or if it's something different.
That makes sense?
Understood.
Yeah,
Very
'cause
well.
he
Yeah,
knows
so
way more
we're
about it.
almost another extension on it.
Basically, yeah,
Cool.
basically,
So
yeah.
there's a motion, really, just.
And there's 30 days for you guys to kind of figure out what's going to happen, if it's going to happen. Otherwise, Mr. Gonzalez is going to go ahead and pay us that $25,000, sign an agreement to move forward, and with all the provisions that Mr. Takus and our manager, Corey Jenkins, put into place.
Excellent.
Do we have to vote on this, or is this?
I don't know if you
Don't
need
think
to
you do.
vote on it, but as the chairman, you can certainly continue it until next meeting, which is the effect of what we're doing anyway. You're not taking any action on it today. You're allowing the parties to get together and work out the plan that's been discussed.
Okay, then as our chairman for the minute, I propose that we go ahead and table this until next month, and hope that we get the kind of information we need from Mr. Gonzalez, and and possibly with CTE. So at that point, I moved. Anybody second that? All right.
No, after,
If I, if I
after
could get
being very
Mr.
familiar with Jet
Hickerson,
Ranch and how it operates, I think it sounds like we're ready to go.
Okay.
Give him a chance, and it sounds like Corey has a good plan. So I say we go full steam ahead.
So my move to table,
You don't need to make a
Oh, okay.
motion. As chairman, you can simply continue it to the next meeting.
I just continued it till the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. I'm
Okay,
very
then.
appreciative. Thank you.
Tom, hope to get this resolved in the next month. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay.
Vice Chair Pulitz, thank you for stepping in while I recused myself. I do want to note for the record that Member Norvell has had to excuse himself for the evening. As I said, he is on a time constraint. So at this point, I would recommend in his absence that we wrap this up as quickly as possible. I know that Nadine was waiting on the line. So Nadine, we're going to turn it over to you for your report.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. So just going through the engineering update list, as you can see, the snow removal equipment, I have to be determined there. As far as the delivery, I don't have an update on that right now, but I will request from Mike Dickin, as you may know, that he's kind of working on that. So I'll request from him an update on the delivery of the equipment. The nighttime approach lighting system project design is underway with Lean Engineering. We did have a very brief update with them, and they're fine tuning some of the plans. So once that those details are fixed, we will get that over to you all for a brief review and continue that design process. As far as phase 3, which is the construction of that system, the grant application has been submitted to the FAA. So no action on that, more just a waiting game. And the other project that is potential for FAA fiscal year 2023 is the snow removal equipment building, which would need to rebid. The grant application for that has been submitted, and they are requesting that the sponsor is using bill funding and AIP funding for that project. And that's all I have right now. So of course, if there's any questions that come up, you know how to get a hold of me, but you can ask them away right now as well.
Thank you, Nadine. John, you had a question?
Nadine, on the SRE building, is that, I thought we were going to rebid that this FAA fiscal year. Was I mistaken on that?
So like this last spring, is that what you mean?
Between now and
Or
October of
coming
this year.
spring?
But between now and October of this year, is that not correct?
No, that's right. So essentially, the FAA had sent the initiation letter, which had the snow removal equipment building on the list. The project design is completed. The rebid would occur. Let's see. I want to say April is their timeline, their deadline for that. So yeah, it's still on track to bid this year.
And you're thinking between now and early April, it'll get rebid?
That's the plan, yes. Unless we hear something different from the FAA, yes, that is the plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Fair enough. Thanks, Nadine. Manager's report.
Thank you.
Corey?
Okay, for the manager's report, the fuel flowage is kind of interesting for November, December. It was slightly below last year for November, but a pretty big increase in December over the previous year in fuel sales. There was another trespassing incident at the airport. It was the same individual that was in my report, I think that was in November, who was arrested at that time for trespassing on the airport. This time he caused some damage to the snowplow that caused some delays with our snowplowing operations. I'll kind of get into that when I detail some of the snow events in a little bit. He was arrested again. We've identified how he accessed the airport, and we're already in the process of making the necessary improvements to discourage that. Luckily, everything we've done to prevent him from accessing the airport has worked so far, but he always finds another way. I've been doing a few things in cooperation with the city. I've been assisting the city with some 14 CFR Part 77 requirements for some of the developments surrounding the airport. And also, I've had some discussions with them about through the fence operations and the potential benefits and risks to be aware of. The financial audit was completed and submitted to the city and to the state. We've had quite a few snow events. This winter so far in Minden is actually the wettest winter they've ever had in record. I don't think we're all that far behind them. I'm not sure where we're ranking on our records in history, but it's been a very heavy snow season. With these snow events, there's been 3 particular events. Rickley had over 30 hours of overtime. And we've also had about $1,500 in fuel expenses for the snow removal equipment. There was a combined approximately 4 hours of delays due to that equipment damage caused by the trespasser. The majority of that was the first day, and then there was some additional damage on the plow that was discovered later that we had to address. For the most part, snow plowing has been implemented very well this winter, but we have also identified some areas of improvement. When we do our postseason snow and ice control plan, I plan to have two separate priority maps, and I'll have those prepared for that postseason map. The large plow is built for a specific purpose, and it'll be better use of time for utilizing it for that purpose while utilizing our smaller equipment. And they basically both need their own priority list rather than one primary priority list. Aircraft operations for December were 1,719 according to the ADSB data, and we have detailed charts of that below. It's a little bit of a drop over last month. Of course, the snow, I'm sure, is having a big impact on that and the IFR conditions we've been experiencing. And that's it for the manager's report.
Okay, thank you so much. Steve, do you have anything to report?
Just a couple of things to add to the trespasser. I did appear at the 48-hour hold, the first hearing, and at our request, at my request, the judge issued an order prohibiting Mr. Ward, this gentleman's name's Alfred Ward, from being within 100 yards of the airport. I did also go to the preliminary hearing the following week in front of another judge, actually the sitting judge, Judge Armstrong, who extended that order and left it in place after hearing what our concerns were. I do know that at the hearing yesterday, probably at the urging of the public defender, Mr. Ward pled guilty to the trespass on the airport, for which I'm told, I haven't seen this in writing, but I've been told by the DA's office that it resulted in a 45-day jail sentence, and then 135 days after that, that he's prohibited from being within 100 yards of the airport. Given his past behavior, I think it's not unlikely that he will show up on the airport again. And if that happens, the DA has urged us to call the sheriff's department, arrest him. That'll be a violation of the terms of this order. And then the court gains a longer purview over him and can restrict him for a longer period of time. So there's kind of bits and pieces there. I don't have the actual written order so that I can see exactly what it says. But as soon as I get that, I will circulate it, and then we'll make sure that all of our eyes on the airport are watching for this if it happens, so we can take action right away before it can damage something else. I don't have anything else to report.
Thanks, Steve. John, do you want to add anything to the conversation this evening besides your written report?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Just real briefly, we're on very solid ground financially. I think it's noteworthy that we sold almost $70,000 worth of rock in the first half of the year, which is much larger than normal, and so that's helping our bottom line. And that we also earn $11,000 or $11,500 in interest this year as interest rates go up. So our participation in the government investment pool is paying off under the current circumstances. Then the only other thing that you can see all the other numbers. The only other thing I think is worth mentioning is you will get your first look at the budget for next fiscal year at next month's meeting. Corey and I'll be working on that between now and the next meeting.
Thank you so much. Any questions for John? Okay. Seeing none, any reports from Airport Authority members?
I don't have a report, but I have a comment. I just want to let my fellow board members know that I believe the work that Corey Jenkins and Rick Lee are doing at the airport should be acknowledged as excellent. The way that they work with just a two-man team and the way they address the emergencies, the snow removal, the clients, the customers, is everything I could have ever expected. And when I see the decision-making that both of them, they work together. They're like a brain trust, which I really like. And I'm very confident going forward that as we grow the airport, it's going to continue to just get better and better and better. So I just want to acknowledge that because I'm out there watching and observing, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
I don't see anybody here for public comment unless either of these two gentlemen want to add anything to the conversation. Fair enough. As John mentioned, just a note that we will be reviewing a preliminary budget at our February meeting. That's when we start our budget review. And John really carries the weight on his shoulders for this. It's probably the toughest officer position on the Airport Authority, and we thank you immensely for what you do. Many thanks. That just about wraps it up. We're going to adjourn for this evening. We'll see everybody next month.